Former Secretary of State Antony Blinken later suggested in a meeting with USCIRF members, which I was present, that these massacres were caused by climate change, that desperate Fulani herders were simply looking for pasture land. Let me be clear, this is not about climate change. It's about a violent extremist ideology that seeks to eliminate Christianity from Nigeria's northern and central regions. The evidence is undeniable. This is systematic religious violence. The U.S. government must act, and they must act now. Nigeria must be redesignated a country of particular concern. The Biden administration's removal of this designation was a reckless mistake that emboldened the very terrorists who are slaughtering Christians. The evidence overwhelmingly meets the legal threshold under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, which requires CPC status for governments that engage in or tolerate severe violations of religious freedom.
The U.S. congressmen and the subcommittee in charge of violations of the fundamental rights of religious expression has made strong recommendation to the administration of Mr. J. Trump over the continued violation of the rights of Christians in Nigeria, with very strong, overwhelming evidences that attest to the fact that Christians have been persecuted, killed, and there is a systematic, premeditated intention to annihilate the Christian communities in the North Central and of course across different parts of the North, citing what is happening in Agatu, Benue State, Jos Plateau, where several Christian communities have been sacked from their indigenous ancestral homes, being reoccupied by the invaders and those with such obnoxious and nefarious intentions. But the Minister of Information of Foreign Affairs of the Nigerian State has come to debunk such allegations that this is misrepresented. But the fact remains that you can't deny the truth. Now, there have been several killings around the Christian communities, churches, in the procession of services had been rounded up and burned down alive, burned down, of course, by these nefarious elements. It's quite unfortunate whose intentions or primary objective or premeditated intention was to subdue the Christian communities and threaten them to the point that they could no longer return. They will flee from their ancestral homes. They destroy their communities, just pull down their houses with the intention never to let them come back. Now, what do you describe such? Is an act of terrorism. Now, if you believe as the government that this is not, it has no bearing with the intention of persecuting Christians. Now, it's an act of criminality. It's an act of terrorism against the state. What have you done to bring the perpetrators of this heinous crime to book? Does it imply that you are, or perhaps your body language suggests you are responsible for such acts? Any government that condones acts of terrorism is a terrorist government. Now, if that is what the Nigerian government is trying to suggest to the international community, then that compounds the problem. If you say that it has no religious bearing, there is no intention to persecute Christians, it's just about Fulani and herders and farmers class, what efforts have you made or decisive move to resolve this? This involves the lives of people being killed, families, including children, massacred on a daily basis. We've heard where the Christian Association, the chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, of the northern part, was beheaded. It's quite unfortunate. We've seen where even people preaching on the streets of Abuja and other parts of the north were also killed. It is quite unacceptable. This and many more horrible things and activities, an attack, deliberate, decisive, intentional and premeditated attack against even the Southern Kaduna Christian communities is quite alarming, and this has drawn the attention of Trump administration as the congressmen make strong recommendation that Mr. Trump should take action immediately and sanction Nigeria, designate Nigeria as country of particular concern with this persecution and religious intolerance within the northern part of the country, just as we saw over 4 states within governors of the northern states shut down schools because they want to observe Ramadan. While in Saudi Arabia, their pupils, their students are attending schools, taking lectures and miss the Ramadan. Now, what does that imply? So this religious persecution has drawn the attention of Washington, D.C. and the congressmen and the subcommittee that is in charge with this, especially the African region, has made strong recommendation with emphasis on Nigeria that the U.S. government should pay serious attention and redesignate Nigeria as country of particular concern with unmistaken and overwhelming evidence that affirms that Nigerian Christians are being persecuted and risk extinction is quite very worrisome, what we have seen. And we watch the government doing nothing at all to help the Christian communities survive. It's quite unfortunate, but they believe or claim that the country is facing multi-plural set of insecurity, and if you cannot, as a government, guarantee the safety and life of your citizens, then you have no reason being in government. So government could be considered as a failed state. So whatever be the case, in any angle you want to consider this, it is quite a very disturbing development. Well, let's see what will happen as this recommendation, strong recommendation, has been made. And he also berated the former U.S. Secretary of State, Blinken, for deceiving the Americans that the killings had nothing to do with the Christian persecution that is just bordering on climate change. It's not only in Nigeria you have climate change that is being affected. Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria, has large expanse of land. So if they are looking for climate change and moving down to the south, even in the north, killing their own people, killing the part of the northern ethnic nationalities, which perhaps they perceive as Christians or infidels, is quite unfortunate with this development and many more abundant evidence. Nigeria possibly will be redesignated as country of particular concern, and invariably that may come with certain stringent sanctions. But then let's see how that happens. Only time will tell. But then the truth cannot be denied. Several thousands of churches has been burned down and Christian communities overrun by these militias, and yet none of them has been brought to justice to serve as a deterrent. Now, if you have not persecuted any of these elements, nefarious agents or elements, then it means you might be in connivance with whatever they are doing. If they are not being brought to book to serve as a deterrent to others, then there is something you owe the entire masses an explanation, especially the Christian communities. Why are these people not being arrested? Repeatedly, they unleash mayhem, they invade communities, even when they send pre-notice that they are coming, yet they will come and attack, and the security operatives will be nowhere, of course, to give them a very strong fight. Rather, they may make excuses that the terrain and whatever is too difficult for them. You can imagine when a soldier is or defense force is giving such flimsy excuses. The reason why they could not come to protect the citizens of Nigeria, that the terrain was not well mastered, was very difficult for them and their men. It is quite very ridiculous. But whatever happens, the U.S. as a sovereign nation and independent investigations has been already carried out, and there are witnesses to that testified about within Benin or Christian communities, more than 55,000 in the shortest possible time has been killed as a result of this menace. Well, let's watch as things unfold and see, of course, the next line of action. As Mr. Trump has vowed that his administration will defend the right to religious affiliations, expressions, especially the Christians and every other religion that is threatened globally. Let's see the next line of action of Mr. Trump administration.